I was very naughty. No, but we very much had a family business because I mean the beginning of the domain. It's my father who created that in '78, but I was born in '72. So when I was kid, I still remember going from Meursault to Cruzy, Meursault Cruzy in the car, and because he was planting the vineyards and working in Meursault at the same time. So that was the very beginning of it. And then I mean, we very much had a classic, I would say, French vigneron life, which was, my father was working a lot, and we were clearly the task force for the vineyard. As soon as we could handle, a bucket or whatever secateurs, and so we would spend Wednesday and Saturday in the vineyards working with my parents. And when we would have enough of working, we would go and play in the woods or whatever. So that very much been the life we had. And so, I mean, that's the house where I am now, and the house where I mean we live is the family house, and it was given by my grandfather as a wedding gift. And so that's we I mean that's the only house I knew, and so that's part of the history. So that's
What 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 were the what were the jobs that you did that you absolutely hated in the winery, in the vineyards, either?
uh a lot, I would say a lot. Well, I mean, according to the age, I mean, I have memories when I was a teenager. I was 16, 17. I was doing theater. So I was playing, and so we would play May and June, and doing the repetition of the for the play, and so we were doing a lot of work at that time, and coming back very late. And my father says, you do whatever you want during the night, but in the morning you work. So I would come back at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then at 7 I had to be in the vineyard. So that is a pretty bad memory of the vineyards. And so, but that's you learn that that's the way it is. And I think the summer time was the most difficult, because especially when you're kids, you don't like working in the sun and working. It's still a difficult things with the weather. The I mean, we never pruned the vineyard. But that was the only my father and the I mean, we never had to do that as kids. And but we will help whatever task we could do it, we would do it. And so that's all. That's also, and then the domain kind of expanded. My parents started that in '78, and then in '91 my first brother started, and then then my second brother in '92, I think. And then I came back in '96, but we had a terrible frost in '91, and then hailstorm in '94, '95. There was kind of a difficult time for the domain. And so that's where, I mean, I went to the army, and then met Tess, my wife, and then moved to UK, and then came back in at the end of '99 to start the domain. So that's and then the domain was very much organized as a family business. So it was the three brother, my father, my mother, and my sister-in-law Karin, which is still on board. And we used to do 17 hectares all together with only a part-time job. Today we are 10 to 11 people working to replace the same team, the same family team. I will say that one member of the family is you need two workers to replace the amount of job and autonomy we had, and that's the way it is. And so it's been a lot of frustration. Each time we lose a member of the family and we had to replace by workers, it's been a tough time for the family, because we could see that, and it was very difficult because we knew we could do more, but not as a employee point of view. So that's always been a funny transition for us. Now we are it's different. We organize ourselves. We have no more choice. So it's the domain really organized around an employee setting up the meetings and things like that, and classic company.
So I really want to come back to that, but before we get away from it, what part of the work in the winery did you really like, or where did you start to see that you were interested more than just the obligation to work?
I always worked in a winery. I mean, my brother worked in a vineyard, but I always loved to work in a winery. And we had a very old press. My father bought those press. They were from Rayas, and it was created. It was a 1953 press, and so it was all mechanic. It's so you would just have a, pumping the really the whole system where you had to be behind the press, it was very simple. You could see the air coming in, so you would stop the air and brake, and so quickly, my father would give me that responsibility to do the press, because it was very simple. You could see the juice running. You don't put any more air in, and then you could see. And then when it was not running, you would put more air. So it was very simple. And so I used to love doing that and working in a winery. That's really something I enjoy, and which is because it's very pleasant to make the wine, to transform everything. When you have the 30, 40 people working, bringing grapes, and you transform that, and you press the grapes, you do the fermentation, you make the wine. And it's true for in the harvest, you kind of the hero of the harvest, because you make the wine. And so that was the and it was big party at the during the harvest. So that was cool. It's that's really what changed I mean, give me the pleasure to that, and I still do.
Um, talking about talking about the family changes, I've thought a bunch this week as I read back over things and look at vintages and wines and different pieces. Uh, you have gone through an incredible amount of changes since we started working together in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
And even before that, you're talking about your brothers coming in and Hale. I think we talk about a winery that's going for 50 years and we lose the sort of real human side of the changes. Can
Yeah.
you can you um, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like and those changes and sort of what people maybe don't know from the outside? And I am in no way looking for any sort of family gossip. I'm really not interested in that. What I'm interested in is just in how hard it is to run a winery producing at a very, very high level where other
Yeah.
things happen.
The thing is, when I came back, because my job, I was sommelier in London, and so I could speak English. I was easy with talking, telling stories. So I was quickly, I was the one for the sales, and so I run that, and that kind of changed. So I had that agreement, which was very simple with my father, and he was doing the sales, and but it was blocked because he hated traveling on a plane. So he never been on a plane in once in his life. So no American market, no English market, and so it was very limited in terms of and development, and so I changed that a lot. And the thing is, the family also give me the capacity to transform the whole domain. When I came back in 2000, my father would do 35,000 bottles, and the rest was sold in bulk to negociant, and we do 130,000 barrels today. So it's a little massive expansion of number of barrels. But 15 hectares at that time would have been 90,000 barrels. So only 30% of the wine were bottled. And then in 2004, the bulk market collapsed completely, and it was a drama. There were no more market for the Gamay. There were no more market for the Pinot. The Pinot, they were buying a barrel of wine for I think 500 euro at that time, and the price dropped down this during the year at 150, when our costs were above 400, and so it was. They were just like no more market, and I came back at that time. And the thing, I kicked the negotiation out, and I said, in that case, I'm going to start selling wine at your price and the cost price, and which I did. And I started selling the Macon Village at 3.15, €3.15, and that was 70% of the production. So Genévrière, Combet, and all of that, everything was mixed up and sold as a Macon Village at 3.15, and it's yesterday. And so I took the van and I drove all over the place in France to sell my wine to cafe, restaurant, and all of that. And but that was kind of a desperate way of selling the wine, because it's when you're forced, you don't think straight. And then I met in Paris Philippe Noyer. He clearly was a massive important influence on the domain, because he used to work with the Clos Rougeard, with Maxime Graillot, with Celos, with how call that, Didier Dagneau. So kind of big names from the Loire Valley, from Burgundy, from everywhere. And he started working with us. And so we created the Perrier together. So we moved the price, and from that time to €5 to maybe 15 or so, 17 euros. So we tripled the price. And he said, your wine are too good to be sold in bulk or in cafe. What you want to do is to establish yourself in the gastronomic, and that was my understanding of the vineyards, but I didn't have the connection in the restaurant. So we started building the reputation with him in Paris, and today we are still extremely strong in Paris. We do 25,000 barrels in Paris, and it's all the top cuvee. So that really one of the good things. And the good thing I would say about the family was because my brother and my two brothers and my father were working in the vineyards. I would never ever look back at what they were doing, because there is a complete understanding. It's the way it was working. So I was doing my job, they were doing their job. As soon as my father left, or we replaced that with the workers, it was a different task. And the notion, the knowledge, the responsibility, and also the autonomy. I mean, we learn that, and always say that to be winemaker where we are, it's a 10 years, or it's a 10 years improvement and work to know kind of whole, to be autonomous, and the average time for a worker is between 2 and 3 years. So they start knowing and then they leave. They start and then they leave, which means you have to be to go back to vineyards, go back to the to do things. And the more I was losing brother and father and mother, and the more we had to reorganize the production. And and today I'm doing less commercial, because it's an easy path for us. We are selling with all the work I did for the past 25 years. And then we have Karine who back me up. I've got Ségolène, which is with Hexagon. So it's a complete different organization. And but the thing is, I think it was possible to do what we did because we were a strong family organization, and and the fact that all those change. I mean, there were problems. We sorted out those problems, and but we also had time to do that. And so it's no, it's we've done it. So
So I never thought of the Macon as the savior of the estate. It's an interesting way to sort of present that, to just to tell the reality of a family story, that the Macon wines were a lifeline at a moment when you needed them, and then allowed you to really continue the work of discovery that your dad started in establishing establishing not only the quality of the grapes coming out of the vineyards, but the establishing the name of Le Carrière and the other sites. So there's a
Yeah.
bridge that I hadn't understood before.
That, I mean, that's for sure. And the thing is, the Macon. My father really started the job I'm following. I mean, in footstep. He really had in mind the Meursault organization, what he learned in Meursault. So the use of barrels, using the names, and that always been on. The thing is, the recognition of that kind of job took a long time, because we have a massive problem with cooperative around us. They are, because they are very, very, very cheap. They are industrial. They produce a lot more wine, and so it's just like, a small Californian company being in middle of Gallo. They will be in trouble because that's what it's better our situation here. We have Luni, and it's 1,300 hectares, and we have 16 hectares just in middle of that. So of course, when people talk about Macon Cruzy or Macon Luni or Macon Chardonnay, it's it's a cheap wine, and people would just. I mean, it's had the best comment ever on my wine, and I laugh when he said that. And I was in Lyon in the Paul Bocuse, where they sell food, and the guy from a restaurant said, "Oh, you have a very good wine, but there's too much taste." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yes, Macon, it's to put cassis in it. So your wine has too much taste. It doesn't go with the cassis." was I was shocked, and but in the same way I loved it, and but it was so true. And I stopped selling wine in Lyon because his point was the image of Macon in Lyon was a bulk wine where you add cassis, and it was a very cheap wine, and that was destroyed by the cooperative, and that was the main market of the cooperative. And I even today I sell 2,000 barrels in Lyon, which is an hour from us, and 25,000 barrels in Paris, because the image is different. And so that's the funny things about the Macon area. Um, it was a problem, was also a massive luck, because we could buy land for nothing. So, and today we have that recognition. We sell whatever we want at the price we want, and we are expensive for Macon, but we are still very cheap for a Burgundy point of view. So and where we stand is great, because it's. I mean, in France, I don't know the U.S. market that well, but in France today, between a bottle between 10 and 30 euros for the private. That's where people who works are happy to spend money. 10 euros, you do that every day. 30 euros, you go once a week or twice a week. So that's the market we stand for. And I don't know the US market, because it's so different and wider. But
So can you tell us, it's a question we get a lot, and I don't know we have a good answer for it. Can you give us sort of a top level view of why the co-ops emerged in the Macon, and why Macon had that economic, why is the rest of the Macon producing at the scale as it is compared to where you are?
the cooperative stories start from the phylloxera crisis, so beginning of the century. So everything was ruined, and the Mâconnais had a very different organization from Burgundy. Burgundy, if you look at a map, you have one massive hillside from Dijon to Beaune, and the middle slope is the Premier Cru and Grand Cru, and then the rest is it's either on the rock and too poor and or too rich. So it's very simple, and the result of that is, if you were winemaker or farmers in Meursault, you would only make wine, because there's only wine. If you come to Creusy or to the Mâconnais, it's much more hilly. You have free valleys, you have rivers, and so the result is the agriculture. You have fields, you have a bit of weeds, you have a bit of vineyards, so you have a bit of wood. So a classic farm would do a tiny bit of vineyards then had 10 cows, and then a bit of corn. And so it was multitask agriculture. So when the phylloxera crisis arrived in France, Burgundy was ripped out. And so when they started replanting at the beginning of the century, winemakers they had only one production, which was wine in Burgundy. So they replanted their vineyards and tried to survive with only what they knew how to do it. The Mâconnais was different because the people had a cow, and so when the vine died, they just put another cow in the field. And today the Mâconnais, it's only 30% of what was planted in vines compared to the 18th century. So the change of the landscape is massive. So that's quite interesting. So, and what saved the Mâconnais? It's the cooperative. In just after the war, the first war, in the main crisis in 1929, they created l'Uni, the first cooperative, and the idea was, okay, you have 2 hectares of vineyards. You cannot afford a tractor. You can't afford to have a press. Let's do a joint task, and so they created a cooperative to actually give the tools to for the winemakers to be able to press, to make the wine, and to sell the wine. And that's what they did. And the first market they found was the big negotiation from Beaune. And Beaune always had that long story of negotiation, and Beaune and then Fontainebleau. So the Mâconnais was feeding those big negotiation. So that's the beginning, was saving the vineyards, the organization. Then they found some easy market with the negotiation. Sadly, the negotiation never played the rules for the Mâconnais, and they always saw the Mâconnais as a place to get bulk. So they maintained the price very low, very down, and they never used the history of Cluny, the history of terroir, what we did. And the winemakers in the cooperative were very happy to increase and to industrialize the cooperative. So that's really the story of the Mâconnais. Now, since I would say the 90s, a lot of small wineries start to make their own wine. I mean, the communication has changed. I mean, we have emails, we have, Visio, we have everything, which is, I mean, that changed dramatically the organization of the capacity of sales of young winemakers. And now you can make your wine and sell it. It's but you need to be good everywhere. So that's also the difficulties.
How how confident was your father at the end of his life that his gamble, in terms of wine quality, how do you think he viewed, was his gamble a success in his mind? Did he see the quality that was being achieved and could be achieved?
Oh, I can tell you, he knew it, and he retired in 2005. And 2005, I called him one day, and I said, all the debts are paid, and we didn't have any more mortgage, anything, everything was paid out. And so we would sell every single wine we had, and we didn't have enough wine. And so when he decided to retire, everyone, including us in the family, our customers, our best friend, everyone would say, your father, he will never leave the domain. Is going to stay all your life, and you will have to suffer. Your father, he dropped the key when he said, and we never saw him again. He left and went with my mother doing his gardening, and he would just come back for harvest for a casse-croûte. And he was very confident that the three sons was running the business, and he was very happy about it. And but that's clearly something he worked all his life, and then it was a massive bet, and but it was a successful one for him, and at least for that side. So that's
Terrific. One other piece that I want to get, and we never have enough time, but we've asked you on customer meetings about the origins of your grandparents and the origins of organics and the connection later to Chauvet. Can you run us through just some of the story of why your grandparents were organic, and then and then later on, and not to understand what it is that Chauvet was teaching, but just, I think it's very interesting that your family was in the middle of that culture of that time in France. So not necessarily asking about what is carbonic maceration, but
Yeah.
what was that period from 54 to 78 like for your family?
The thing is, my grandparents, my grandfather was a notary. He was not a winemaker. My grandmother was a nurse, but her father was a winemaker, and the grandfather, great grandfather, so three generations before her, they all were winemakers, and the grandfather was even a barrel maker, and during the war, my grandmother was the assistant of the surgeon of the resistance, and my grandfather escaped from Paris. He was in a German camp and for 2 years and escaped, and he came in a free zone. His motorbike became the ambulance of the resistance. So it's where he met my grandmother during the resistance, and from that time they move out, and they created the nursery. They were not at all in the vineyard for about 10 years. And my grandfather was quite successful, bought some housing, and it was mandated by the government to reorganize all the agricultural land and the administration because of the number of deaths of young people and farmers and all of that. So the administration had a massive job to do that. He was part of that, and so that was the after war. And then he had that guy coming, and said to him, I've got that property. It was owned by the Abbey of Cluny. It's a very important property for me. It's a family things. We've been on that for generation. I can't keep it. Find me someone to buy it. I've got time, but I don't want that to fall into the end of the cooperative. And after 1 year, my grandfather could read Latin, and he did a lot of research. And he said, I'm buying it. And he bought that with my grandmother, and then they moved back. And in the 50s, you have to remember that few people were bottling, and selling in bottle was really unique. And so the first year he walked in the cooperative. He was a cooperative, part of the cooperative at the beginning in 1953. He said to the cooperative, we should start bottling our own wine and stop selling to the negociant. And the result of that, he was kicked out of the cooperative after 6 months. And then he was on his own, not knowing anything about wine, not knowing anything about selling, no market during the 50s. And he started creating his own markets and selling wine. And then when people would come to him and sell product, nitrogen, he would ask, "What is it?" And when people would sell insecticide, he would say, "What is it?" And then he found out that actually the nitrogen was the gunpowder of the First War, and France forbid the sale of manure to sanks the industrial for the nitrogen, which is now a massive problem for the water. And then the insecticide was part of the German camp and created by the IG Farben, which is the company who financed Hitler during the Second War. And that was a complete no to my grandfather and my grandmother. They were resistant. And he always said that we didn't win the war to use that in our vineyards for our lives. And they said stop to that. And they created the organic movement at that moment, which was much more a resistance from the war and a philosophical movement more than a EP aspect to that. Then so that's from the 50s up to the 70s, and then
So,
during the 70s.
sorry, Manu, I heard you say a number of times they created the organic piece, but I don't know that I know. What do you know about what that looked like? Were there 4 people in Cruzy? Were there 100 people across France? What was that in '54 when you started it?
it was a group of people thinking that. I mean, it was many small groups. If you have a, I think there is in the Loire, there is a Domaine des Coccinelles. I mean, the fact is, a lot of people were not using this product, and then few people accepted those products. So you, I mean, but it was not clear. It was not a complete organic or non-organic like we are today. It was more mixed than that, and some people would say, "Oh no, I don't want to use that." And so you had small association in the Loire Valley and all that, and so build up, and but it was very much it took a long time to be a movement. It was first an idea and a refusal of that. My grandfather had labels saying that he was organic. The use of the mot agriculture biologique was written on the label for many years because it was his own staff, and then it was to say we don't use chemicals, we don't use pesticide, we do plowing, and so he had a back label saying that. And then during the 70s, there is the EP movement. There is also the Vietnam War, who will bring to the agriculture the herbicide, which was used by the American army, and then the orange agent, which was a complete disaster, and was. I don't have the date for the Vietnam War, but in France it was forbidden in 1985, which is very late. And the stock of the Vietnam War was not finished in Europe, and they still had some stock, and was finished in Africa, and which is like a complete drama, knowing the disastrous of for human for people. So that kind of a build up, like a massive needs of a organization for the organic movement. And then my uncle created, was really, that was his whole life, was he took all the small association, grouped them in a national federation called the FNAB, creating the logo AB. And then he went to the minister, and it took to the recognition of agriculture, of the organic agriculture, is 1988, extremely late. So it's like 30 years after of work, and so the first, and then they established the logo, the AB logo, and the certification with another. So the whole organization from, I would say, the 70s to the 90s. That was my uncle who worked on that.
Can you send us pictures of any of the back labels of your grandfather? I'd love to see those.
I could, yeah, I could, yeah. That's really good. Yes, I could do that.
Before we go beyond that,
You can, if I may, if you go on my, I could send you on on WhatsApp. I will send you there's a film on the E9. There is two films of my grandfather. One in 72 with the first organic market, and there's another one at the Domaine, and I think it's in the 70s. And if you look at the vineyards are completely destroyed by mildew and odium. There is no more leaves on the vineyards. The yield is a disaster. And my grandfather, it's a very funny one, because that he was realistic about it, and he said, this wine is it's too low. There's too low, not enough sugar to make wine, so we'll do a crémant with it. As simple as that. We are not going to add sugar. We will going to do something natural with it, which is the crémant, which was like a revolution at that time, because at that time if we had not enough sugar, you just put some sugar in your wine, and it was very simple. So that I will send you the two. It's in French, but it's a funny one.
Yeah, it'd be great. So one other thing I heard you say that I've never heard you say before was that your grandfather, being a notary, was doing some of the research in Latin and recognized some of the vineyard names. What do you know? What do you know about the process of finding those? Because I assume that that notary experience allowed you to find some of the historical tracks that your dad then purchased later. But we've never heard about that process of actually unearthing those documents and figuring out from the Abbé, what were they reading? Where were they finding that information?
There is for the Abbey of Cluny, we have in Mâcon the archives. There is archives in Cluny and Mâcon, and up to a certain level, it's in French, but after a certain time, it's in Latin. So, but they access it's accessible to everyone. You just go there, and you have to go also to. You can go to Cluny La Sorbonne in Paris, because it was the University of Cluny, and the National Bibliothèque in Paris. And there is the whole. I mean, Cluny is a massive, massive, massive part of French history. So it's there is a lot of writing, even if a lot of books were destroyed after the French Revolution, and so that's the sad part of it.
And he was starting to look around at the property titles and the things like that to find some of those names.
Yeah.
Because we talk about finding the name Geneviève that your dad saw, but that's just wondering where did they initially find those?
I mean, my grandfather was he knew. I mean, it's even further than me. All the history of he was completely crazy about history and did a lot of research. He was reading and writing every day, and especially at the end of his life, he was sick, and he had a. I mean, he was smoking like a pig, and he had one leg cut, so he was in a wheelchair for about 20 years. So those 20 years, he spent them to read and write, and it was. I mean, he wrote some thousand and thousand and thousand of page of paper, and my uncle and cousin still have some in the family, but it's he spent his entire life looking for the origin of the vin Domaine, looking for and also the origin of names. He has writing about all the name like Genévrière, it's juniper, the Molpierre, it's Pierre Meulière. He would look for that and find the definition, finding the Latin words. He spent hours as a historian about the everything around this domain and all of that, which is crazy and fantastic.
And then when did they start to interact at all with Jules Chauvet, and what, if anything, did that bring to their knowledge?
Jules Chauvet it's kind of the 70s. It's 75, I think. Jules Chauvet, and it's Jules Chauvet was based in Beaujolais, and at that time. There were, I mean, the link between people like Marcel Lapierre, my cousin, there were not that many domain working like that, and so we all knew each other. And my grandfather was interested by the work of Jules Chauvet, and but Jules Chauvet was he was an oenologue. It's not at all a hippie making natural wine at all, but he worked with Marcel Lapierre because they had at that time they were making wine with whole cluster. Steaming was not that much used in the Beaujolais, and the whole cluster they had massive problem of fermentation and having sugar left or having a reduction, volatile. So the process, the vinification was not very easy in the Beaujolais during that period of time with the technique they had and the wine they were making. So a lot of wine went bad, and the reputation of the Beaujolais was bad for that. And Jules Chauvet came back and said, "Okay, we're going to work." And the carbonic was established at that time. And my grandfather was kind of allergic to sulfur, so he was doing some of the non-sulfitic wine for many years. And so when Jules Chauvet started with Marcel Lapierre, of course he joined the task and he worked with him. But it's more because it was very much in the Beaujolais. It was very much Marcel Lapierre and Jules Chauvet who works together. And then people like my grandfather joined the whole process and followed that. But they were using the non-sulfitic process before Jules Chauvet.
So, uh, in the pre-internet era, were people getting together around? How did they share information? How did they work together in terms of passing those ideas along?
I
If you
mean,
know,
first, we all forget about that, but they had newspaper, and so we would have a newspaper on the, and people would read newspaper every day. It's the email of today. It's the Facebook of the time. And so people were writing and reading a lot more than today. And so you would have l'exploitant agricole, which was a news from the inside of the vineyards. And so it was only talking about experiments and what, well, that one did that. And I still have some of very old newspaper from the beginning of the century for the agriculture. And so you would have an article from that guy who actually discovered the use of sulfur, and then you would have the guy selling the horse, the plow, and so everyone would use that to sell as an advertisement. So that was clearly the time for the way to do that. And the wine were sold in a closed market. You would not drive to Paris to sell your wine. It was not in the 50s, 60s, not even in the 70s. You would sell your wine just around. What changed the market? It's the supermarket, because the supermarket killed all the local market. But before the supermarket, everyone would sell the wine just around the area, in the area, and people were working more outside, drinking more wine, and wine were also had less alcohol into it. So the wine changed dramatically from the 50s to the 70s, and then from the 70s to now. It's there's a massive evolution.
so last question on my side. I don't think I've asked you about specifically. You 3 years ago, if I understand, you started the process to be certified in biodynamics. Talk to us about that
Yes.
and why. So somebody who's been organic forever, what do you see in biodynamic that's going to help you, and how is it changing your farming and your wines?
We, I mean, always we were very close to biodynamic. The only thing we didn't do was using the the silicium and then the 4501. So, but all the rest we would do our own. I mean, everything else is very much biodynamic at the Domaine. So it was not an easy task, an easy things to do to turn biodynamic. I kind of stopped the biodynamic now for human reason. It's I don't, the woman I was working with for the transformation in biodynamic left. I have someone coming back next week in 26. So the idea is to go back to biodynamic, but it's I don't know if I will go through the certification. What I like about biodynamic, it's the use of plant, and also the observation people have. And when you have people sensitive to the biodynamic, they're more careful with plants, they are more careful with the wine, and I think it's very important to have that kind of profile in the vineyards. So biodynamic bring you this kind of profile workers in the vineyards. And one of my, I mean, we were planning to be Demeter, and one of the, I mean, big dream of the Domaine is to have a table at the Domaine. And I started with a young couple to do vegetable garden, but massive, like 2 hectares of veg in Cruzy. And the idea is to do to have a small restaurant. That's one dream, and then the other it would be to have goat and animals in the fields, in the vineyards to eat to get some grass. So that's more. It's more going back to an old farm and with a different organization. But that's a lot of work, and especially with human people. Animals are easy compared to human. That's for sure. Which one are you pouring?
So I just poured Genevieve 23, and
Yep.
we had a comment, I think you heard at Knightsbridge, which was terrific, about appreciating the freshness of the wine, especially for 23. Can you tell us why that is? What do you tell us about this 23 Genevieve?
The 23, it's very ripe. It's for me, it's vintage, very close to 18. So it's the drought was in August, and so we have a quite, I mean, good yield on average. Not everywhere. The top of the vineyards were too dry, and so we produce. I mean, if you look at the Genévrière, the top row of the Genévrière would do 10 hectoliters per hectare. It was too dry, and the bottom ones were it was 60 hectoliters. So there were a massive difference. Talking just about the wine, what I found out by doing the vinification for the past 10 years, it's those vintage are very fragile. And what makes the wine very fresh, very mineral, very salty is the relation we have with the limestone. That relation is very fragile, and especially if you can, how could you say that, using pump. So if you distract the wine, and so the idea is to use gravity as much as we can, and to respect as much the energy of the wine. And the for example the batonnage, which we always do. We used to do that all the time. We don't do that all the time now, and it's a relation for us. The batonnage, we do that to help the malolactic. On a hot vintage, there is very low level of malic acid. There's more tartaric acid. So actually, the malolactic goes very fast, which is the case of 25, 23, 25, 23, 22, 20. So all those vintage, you don't need to help the malolactic going on because it's easy. And doing the malolactic on a 24 vintage is important because the fact of the batonnage, you that's the you help the reduction going up in the barrels, and you mix the reduction into the oxidation. So by doing that, you help the sugar to finish the fermentation, you help the malolactic, and you bring also some oxygen. Slowly, you bring some oxygen to the wine, which help the fermentation. And also that's is great on a 24 vintage because it will make it rounder, and that's where the Burgundy, white Burgundy are fantastic. It's on this fresh vintage, you have the freshness and the roundness to it. And so now we don't do batonnage if it's like that, and we keep 12 months and we do nothing about the wine, and we leave that like that, and then we do the racking just during the harvest. We put them in tank and we do a natural fermentation, natural sedimentation in tank, and we don't do the filtration for 80% of the wine. So everything which is clean in the tank is bottled like that, and then the leftover is filtered and add up to the tank. And I found that it's respecting as much as we can the structure of the wine. That helped a lot to get the saltiness and the freshness of the wine. The more you actually disturb the wine, the more you disturb that energy and that connection to that, and that where is very important to to be careful in the vineyards, in the cellar.
When you talking about selling Genevieve, there's this is often one of the starting points, and we're talking about the story of the connection to Zoe and the name. And when you were establishing in Paris and when you sell the wines abroad or anywhere, how do you present the wine as its own thing when a buyer's first thought might be for a vineyard in Mexico? Do you see? I'm sure you come across something like this. Do you understand what I'm trying
Um,
to?
I kind of, you know, I always say that I'm very interesting in what my customers drink to know what they like, and for example, like I'll give you an example of import my choice of importers, um, which has changed a lot. We we for example had the Kermit Lynch coming to our vineyards 15 years ago, and or maybe 10 years. I don't know, can't remember when we started together.
Talking
Uh,
13 and 2015 was the first. You were here in 2015 for the first time.
so 15, so it must have been 14. Yeah, so about 15. Yeah, 10. So about 10 years. So Kermit Lynch came in 18 or something like that to us, and he wanted to distribute our wine. And I said, no, I don't want to have a national distribution. I want to keep my small importers because I'm happy with the job they do, with the passion they have about the wine and the relation we have. And he said, no, it's either we have everything or we don't. And I kicked Kermit Lynch out of the cellar to protect small markets. And to me, you have that kind of importers who come to you because you start to be well known, and then you have you have the people who wants to drink Merceau and a cheap Merceau. Both are wrong. And for us, it's you like the wine, and I always say that's wine create emotion. So if you have emotion with our wine, then you understand, and then you listen to the story, and then you get interest to it. But if you just read, William Kelly or the Wine Advocate, and you read, oh, it's 94 and fantastic, it's a great wine, then you're wrong. It's no, it was well noted at some point, but that doesn't mean you will have emotion because it's a great quotation. And I've always been very careful with that, and I think that's my sommelier's education who brought me that. It's to taste with my customer, and I would say let the wine talk more than I do, even if I talk a lot. But the it was very important for me to find the right people who like wine more than the people. Just one details. Usually, we are not really good on portfolio of importers when they have they are specialized in Burgundy. We are not good because we are the expensive Macon, which is the price of another Volnay or another whatever wine. And so for them it's a big problem to sell our wine because we prove that we can do the same thing in a different region than Meursault or and that. So they're usually not really good at that. And so we are better. We only sell to people who just like wine. As simple as that. So that's
So we have now Combet 23 in the glass. Can you, the guys have seen the pictures, Alex and I have obviously walked there. Can you tell us about this wine and the site and the differences between them?
the combatant Genevière, it's the same hillside. And you have Genevière, you have a falling plant. The vineyard just like fall inside, and you have for like 4 or 5 meters of soil, and Combat, the mother rock, it broke and faced more the south. The result of that is you have the wind from the south blocking there, and the north wind going above, and the result is when you pick up at the same date, you have half a degree more in Combat than Genevière always, and there's less soil, so it's everything else is the same way of plantation, same harvest, same everything. So it's really the notion of terroir who does That it's just the orientation who does the job. It's-
Do you find differences in the how they sit open for a couple of days? Do they resist oxygen differently? Do they age differently?
Um, I will always say that combat is easier. It's kind of more open young. It opened faster than the Genevrier. Genevrier, it's always it takes more time to open the Genevrier. It's also the Genevrier. It's a much bigger cuvée, so it's not. I mean, just for we have three or four tanks of Genevrier every year. When we have only one tank of Combat, so the result is there is always differences because when you bottle 50 hectoliters by 50 hectoliters. So there is always a tiny bit difference between the beginning of the lot and it's not as unified as the Geneva the Combat. And I mean we only do one wine, but there is it's not as well mixed, I will say, compared to the Combat. So so Genevière, it's generally the same wine, but you can have differences from the beginning of the cuvée to the end of the cuvée because of that. That's one small reason. And I always found the Genevière, I always call it the diesel. It's like the old engine where it starts slowly, and then combat it's kind of more open, but then after 2 or 3 years generally combat and Genevieve are on the same side.
And then now we've got Perrier here next. Tell us sort of situate us and give us the geographic difference with Perrier versus the Genevieve.
Yeah, Perrier and Genevieve. It's Perrier is just another hillside, and it's parallel to Genevieve and Combat. It's also higher in altitude. It's about 400 meters, and Perrier means stone, and it's a very very stony place, and the wine is very much mineral. The 22 vintage is that's the one you're drinking?
Yes.
Yeah, 22 vintage. It's a kind of a very rare vintage of. There is no malic acid in the wine. It's very hot, but it's very watery, very fluid because of the minerality of the wine. And I think that wine is quite fascinating and it will be in 1, 2, or 3 years, and in a long row. I'm very curious about that wine. Um, the minerality always block the fruit, so I would say the fruitiest one is Combat, and then the more mineral and the fluid wine is Perrier. It doesn't always show off, and some people don't understand Perrier vineyards or the wine, but I mean that's the way it is. It's also a much smaller plot. I mean, we do 18,000 bottles of Genevieve. We do 2,000 bottles of Perrier. It's very small.
And then for the reds, while we have you, we'll do actually tell us about we have the Macon Rouge here, and as we reorder, the samples are here. Thank you. But tell us about the program right now with the Macon Rouge, your Bourgogne Rouge. Where are you at with the non-single vineyard, the Coteau? Give us the overview of what you're making today and what you'll continue to make going forward.
The Macron Creuset is the young vines of Beaumont, and it's also a tiny bit of the Genévrière, but it's a brand new vineyard. And I mean, the market is very tense at the moment, and so it was very good to have a cheaper wine to put on the market. It helped to have a wine by the glass. So having those young vineyards was perfect timing. And we usually sometime we put the whole vineyard of Beaumont together, which is 22 vintage, because the 22 was very strong and needed volumes and juice, and sort of the young vineyards, the young vines help the old vineyards who were too concentrate. And on a vintage like 23, the difference was massive, and so we did the young vineyards and the old one. We separate them, and the vineyard was I mean it's less than 10 years old, and the vinification is very short, about 8 days fermentation, and then it's 12 months in oak and food. And the idea is to keep something very fruity, very juicy, and very elegant. And I think I will carry on doing that kind of wine if the market needs it. If I can sell everything at 30 euros, I will do it too. But that's not the case. The no, and also the fact of having young vineyards, you can't expect to have a long aging and pretend to a great wine. So the difference is massive. So that's what we stand with the Macon. The Bourgogne is we have a Bourgogne 24, which we just bottled, and because 24 was a bit of a disaster, we were very successful in running the vineyard with oidium and mildew, and then we had hailstorm just before the harvest. And so Beaumont is destroyed, Renardière is destroyed, Miot is destroyed. The worst was Beaumont. And so we decided not to have Beaumont 24, Renardière, and Miot 24. And still at the beginning of the harvest. So I mixed all the Pinot together. And then I even put the Genévrière together. So there is one Bourgogne for the 24, which will be sold at a cheaper price, at 10 euros, because it's and with bottle they are already bottled, because it's the same idea. It's we want to keep the energy, to have something very fruity and to something very elegant. Everything has been desteamed. We did some sedimentation of the red wine. The idea was to clean up the wine as much as possible, to have something very juicy, very easy, and to sell that quite fast. So that's sadly I don't have enough vineyards to do Bourgogne Rouge all the time. So it's young vineyards sometime, and small vintage. And so when we have vintage like 24, we do that.
Is that what this is? This was in the sample box with the mark. Oh, it's 23 marked out.
Oh, I don't know that. Where it's Bourgogne. Oh, that's Karine. Oh, that's a very strange label. That's a very strange one. I sometimes I have to admit I'm not.
Okay, we won't take your time. We'll follow up separately to figure out.
Yeah. I have no idea what it is, because I'm very curious to know what's in there. That's I think it's a mystery of Karine. And
fair enough.
So
then we'll do here. We have 2020, the tail end of 2020.
You had Macon Cruzy 23.
We have 21 open. We may have a sample of the 23. We don't have it open.
Okay, so that might be that. No, you have the samples of the Macon Cruzy 23 or not?
I can look in the box quickly.
Because maybe that's the one, because maybe it's that the label were not done at that time, so for the samples, so she might have done that. I have no idea.
Okay.
Because there is no Bourgogne as it is as in 23. It's the Bourgogne. It's in 24, and they were not bottled when they send that over. So it must be the Macon Cruzy 23.
So shifting here, we've got a fun thing, and we did last night at the dinner, the 2020 Geneviève and the 2020 Renardière side by side. Can you tell us about 2020 and tell us about these two vineyards? The first we're tasting is the Geneviève 2020.
20 is a very, very hot vintage, but with a massive difference from 23 or 22. Is the wine was the flowering at the beginning was very bad, and so we had very small yield in decided by the vineyards, and we so those vineyards kind of survive very easily the massive heat of 2020 because they had not that much fruit to feed, and so the result of that is we have a fantastic vintage with you know degrees at 13 degrees wine, 5 of acidity, which is perfect for us. It's kind of a dreaming numbers for making wines, and very concentrate, lots of color, lots of structure, but the wine also closed up because we aged them 18 months, and I could see that age. I mean, technically, if I had foudre, I think a 24 or a 36 months aging on a vintage like that would have been fantastic. But it's it's one of the best vintage in terms of keeping for the reds, at least. I compare that to 89 in terms of if you're of balance and that, and it's still a wine I will keep years because it's one of the long aging. For the white, I don't. I haven't tried the 20 vintage now. I don't know if it's is it showing well. What is the how was the wine? What was the
On the 20 white,
yes?
we don't have, we're on the 23 for the white.
Okay.
So
Okay. Oh yeah, you didn't have 20 white. Okay, there was 20 red. And how was the 20 reds tasting like?
They're fantastic. It's there's still a lot of fruit, but you have this real prominent like cola nuts or almost hint of sarsaparilla herbal component that's adds dynamics. It's quite nice.
Good. So no, yeah, it's opening slowly because it was very close. It was very close by. So
Yeah,
that's
it's just very generous. They've been really well received, and yeah, it was a treasure to have. Sure.
okay. Cool. Cool. Always when you open old vintage, it's always difficult. I mean, it's not that old, but it's the wine always don't always react the way you want. But that's
And then, can you tell us 2020 Renardière?
Genévrière is I mean it's the same type. You had 20 Genévrière and 20 what Renardière?
Correct.
Yeah, Renardière is one of the two the really first vintage of the vineyards. I mean, to talk about Renardière, it's for me the massive wine of red wine of the Domaine, and that will kill Lamiot very quickly. And when you try the 25, I just love that wine, and it's free Massal selection. I went pick up in northern Burgundy, so I went to Pommard to Clos des Epneaux. I went to the to Lulune from Giboulot, and I went to La Combe d'Orvaux from Bruno Calavelier, and in Von Romanet to collect some grapes and some vineyards, and to do not the grapes, the branches, and so we did the plant. So free Massal selection. 2020, I don't know how it is, but it's for what is coming up with Renardière. It's very flowery, Pinot nose coming up. 2020, it's still very rich. It's the very young vineyards, so it's you know, the future of Grenadier is coming. It's we are building the that vineyards, and it's getting better and better and better every year, and it's amazing to see the progress of that vineyard. So that's and I will think it will quickly be above Genévrière and quickly be above Lamiotte in terms of order of that. Genévrière, it's the classic Genévrière. It's vineyards, especially for the Pinot. It's a cold vineyard, so it's a vineyard who actually like a lot those very hot vintage. So it works. It works on a Genévrière. It always works when you have a hot vintage. It's like Lamiotte, the Pinot. We sometimes have problems to have them ripe properly, and so those vintage 20, 23, 22, there it always worked for the red wines.
And then we have the 22 Genévrière, which is arriving. It's a sample here that's arriving sometime soon.
Okay, cool.
So we've not.
Genévrière 22 is very different from the 20s. 20 is kind of a full body, very fruity, and it's very structured but balanced. 22 is rougher. It's you have the drought in July and lots of dryness, a lot of spice, pepper, and in the wine. And the fruit is kind of hiding behind, and it needs a tiny bit of time usually when you open the bottle to have the fruit back. And it for me it kind of remind me the 2015 vintage with the stuff spice. When you put your nose on it, you could easily think, oh, it's from sassafras because of that spice. It's or it could be Italian wine where you have very dry tannin, and which is unusual for Pinot. And so that's the vintage, the 22 vintage. It's clearly opening. It's coming up. And I'm sure it would get better and better in aging time. At the beginning, 22 was not pleasant. Was too bitter. I don't know how is the wine, how is the samples, but in France, for the first year was very difficult to sell them. We are starting to sell them now because I need to like the wine when I sell it. And for me, the Genévrière, the 22. I mean, all the 22 were kind of for the red wines were very tannic, very not ready to drink, and so that's. But they're getting there.
So this is a bottle that was opened now 2 days ago. Yesterday.
Okay.
And just tasting it, I think that's a very friendly thing for it. It was when we tasted it yesterday for the first time. Alex asked me what I thought, and I thought it sort of had a lot of the crunchy, high-toned red fruit, but
Yes.
was not as just seemed very young and tight. It was not showing a ton beyond that start. What do you think about the difference between the two here?
And it was Coravin 2 days ago and opened yesterday. So
Did it suffer? Because usually I found the red wine not that easy on a long-term opening. When the white doesn't move, I think the red is much more fragile and oxidized more than the white. I always found that.
I think we saw that with the 2020 Grenadier. Yesterday, it was this great balance of fruit and violet and musk. And then today it was the fruit was a little bit taking a backseat.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think that the 22 Genevieve is still in a good spot today, but I think yesterday I got a little bit clearer picture of the different components. The fruit
Yeah.
was standing out. Today it actually seems slightly more tannic than it was when I tasted it yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, the red are more fragile. That's for certain. It's a question I am. We are working on that with my with the analog, and it's not a question of sulfite or not. But I mean, we are looking at the process we do for the red wines to see why we have white wines who can be open for 2, 3, 4, 5 days without any problems, and why the Pinot are so fragile. And I mean, it's I don't know. It's something we are questioning ourselves, and we are trying to. We have no answer for that so far, but we are looking at it.
Mhm.
Good. Guys, questions? Do you want to follow up specifically?
I do have some questions actually. When you're going around selling in Lyon, where you say it's a little bit of a harder market, what's some language that you use to get someone who's maybe a little bit hesitant to taste? And then also curious about when you're going into Paris, where you sell a lot. What's also your hook there for various places?
Yeah, it is. I would say in Paris, I mean Paris, it's very different. It's people. First of all, it's a market where they are used to drink Loire Valley. So you know that they like the acidity, they like freshness. They are used to drink Saumur Champigny. They are used to drink those wines, and so Burgundy too. And so it's an easy market. I mean, we talk about wine vintage. When you go to Lyon, they drink Viognier, they drink Côte du Rhône, and it's very much their wine. So when you have people who are with the palate is you drink Viognier all the time, then Chardonnay, it's there is it's not, it doesn't go, so it's not an easy game to do that, and I would say it has been one of the most difficult market for me, because I was and especially because my mother is from Lyon, and so we had family there. It's an hour drive, and it's a big city, and I could have sell a lot of wine there, and was expecting to do though, but it's. I mean, I don't know. It's we try to talk to them, but when you talk to someone who's very stubborn with an idea of taste and price, it's very difficult to convince them. It's you need just to. I mean, my way was to find the few sommeliers who would buy the wine and talk to them, and I never try to convince people. It's it's not. It's. I think it's why we have sales rep. It's we are very very bad at selling to someone who doesn't like the wine, and which is sometimes a problem to, because that's what you do every day in your job. It's trying to tell them that's great, try that, and we don't. I mean, I don't do that, or I'm very bad at doing that. It's I found that.
Here, you said something there which I think is interesting and is very relevant because we've talked about it here. The talking to a somm, getting them to like it, that is on our side of things. We look at it as just getting some social proof where people see their colleague who likes it, and then we can spread out. We've had a bunch of that in the last couple of days, and in general, we do anyway from somms, but where we can use that example and then very carefully say to people, we have these examples at high-end restaurants, at big retailers. Here's what they said. Here's how they saw the wine. And just on one hand, hoping that people will listen to us. And then the other thing is just the long-term game of getting enough of the wine out there that people drink, and then they recognize the name when they walk into a place. But that's where someone has seen it before. That's always the challenge.
It is. Yeah. It is a big challenge, and that's true everywhere. And sometimes your wine goes crazy. You don't even know why. The market is the market. But it's true that for me, it's the relation. It's building relation, which is more important, I think. To and then in that relation, you bring wine and so that's your.
Yeah,
But it's
there's a really interesting thing for us in that, because where we're trying to introduce the wines, maybe for some accounts, your wines will be an amazing introduction because somebody could say, I need a white Burgundy, and Auxerre comes right in and plays. For other accounts, maybe they need to trust us because we've showed them something they needed, and then you know that you come back with Guillot Brew and show it at that point. But that's where
Yeah.
that's where the intentionality comes in, where you're deciding very specifically.
Yeah, that today I had a tasting at the Domaine, and it was very fascinating because I had one guy, American guy, came from Dakota, and he was doing a trip by himself with he had someone driving for him, and he was spending a week in Burgundy, Beaujolais, and trying different wine. And so you have that guy, very passionate, lovely customers. I mean, that kind of customer we all love. And then in middle of the tasting, we had some and people from Netherlands who came, and so they joined the tasting. And these people, they had our wine 18 years ago, and they said, "Oh, we came 3 times to visit the Domaine, and each time it was closed or the wrong time." And so they were doing that, and he said, "We've been drinking your wine every time we could." And so it was very funny to have those people who actually had wine produced by my father with an emotion created by the wine of the Domaine, and who followed us forever. I mean, and so they had the wine in Netherlands, and then we don't have any more distribution in the Netherlands, and so they came to visit us, and so it was very interesting to have a customer like the guy from the Dakota who was there because he read that we had a good marking at Parker's, and then he asked another restaurant in Lyon, and they said, "Oh, it's a good winemakers." He go there. He had no idea what he would taste. And then you have your Zeus customers who know who don't know a lot about wine, but the one create an emotion, and that's always something I say. It's like art. You don't explain that, and you don't need to be a professional or what. And you drink it, or you and some people just love it, and they always come back to it. So that's the that research of emotion is, I think,
So then
the
to finish up, we have a little bit left in the back of the Beaumont from 2015. So everybody has a little bit of that right now.
good. That must be good. I don't know how was it.
Yeah, we showed it at the dinner last night. It was fantastic. It was
Yeah.
everyone's favorite. It was the favorite of the evening.
Okay, yeah. I mean, 15 is Beaumont is a great bottle because the Gamay is clearly the grape variety who match the global warming because it's the Gamay has a big grapes and so retain water and feed the plant, and so it's if you take at the origin the Gamay, it's the cross of the Pinot Noir and the Gouais. The Gouais red is and makes the Gamay, and the Gouais white is the Chardonnay. So the Gouais is a plant from Rome, from south of Europe, so very hot place, and it was a grape to eat grapes and big grapes, and so it was to adapt the Pinot Noir to the Beaujolais because it was sand and it was very hot in the Beaujolais, hotter than Burgundy, and so the Pinot would not work, didn't like the granite and didn't like the sand, and so they created that. Today we use that in the Beaujolais in the Mâconnais, and it's a very generous plant. If you prune exactly like your Pinot, the same way, you would do double production. So we change the pruning. We do cordon royal, which is very restrictive way of pruning. And then during the spring, we get rid of half of the production to have something. So it's really a plant which is easy to do, very good. You have to be, taking care of the plant, of the pruning, of the spring pruning, but you can easily do some average wine with it. And a lot of people do that. And so 15 is, with 2003, it's the two first vintage, very, very hot. And Beaumont was clearly a fantastic match for that because it was balanced, a bit like 22 in terms of at the beginning, lots of tannin, lots of dry tannin, lots of structure, and the wine took a long, long time to open. So, but no, it is right open.
Terrific. We'll give you a break because we'll get you in a little bit with Jim Boob, the buyer for Hog Salt.
Good.
Who mentioned is very knowledgeable. He's terrific. He's also an absolutely lovely person. But Stephen will head over there and take you with him and call you just before that.
Okay. Perfect. No problem.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All these reds aside from the Macon Rouge were new for me today.